All right, Jessica Lillehoj, how
Yeah,
are you?
I'm good. Thank you for
Good.
saying my last name properly.
Yes, I said it. As you know, there's been internal dialogue of how we say this, and I nailed it. It's Lillehoj. Great. So now everybody knows.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be having this conversation. You are the new children's pastor at the Houston Vineyard.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're so excited. And so, because most people might not have had the opportunity to meet you, but we're going to dive in a little bit to like your backstory, some of your history, how you got involved in the vineyard, and then what you see for the life of our kids going forward.
Okay.
So, tell me, who is Jessica Lillehoj?
This is Lily Hoy. Um, Before I became Mrs. Lily Hoy, um, I was Jessica Shin, and I was born in Canada, but raised in the U.S. Was a pastor's kid, and still a pastor's kid, and then went back to Canada. Felt God calling me into ministry in my late teen years. Went to Bible college. Started out in youth ministry, and then did children's ministry locally in Vancouver. And then had the opportunity to do it in Asia as well. And then when I came back to Vancouver, I did both children's and some, I guess I would describe it as urban compassion ministry. So I did the two. And then met an American, and who's my husband, Peter, and moved up to Michigan, where he was working, and then we had our little girl, Johanna, um, 3 years ago, and then from Michigan we moved to Houston because Peter got a job with Rice, and so we came out this way, and we've been here for just over a year now.
Yeah. How was that move from Michigan to Houston? How have you guys, and just over a year means most of pandemic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But how has that move been for you guys as a family?
It's been really good. I think you mentioned, that it's been mostly during or most of our time has been while pandemic has been happening, and so it actually allowed us to really connect deeply with the community, and that for us has made all the difference. And so, yeah, there were some amazing mamas who really just welcomed me and our family, and that has been the lifeline for us during isolation, during pandemic. And so, yeah.
Yeah, the moms group was where you sort of really got connected. I think actually that's how we met. I think I
Yeah,
met you at the end of a moms group I was walking through, and I think Amy Carlson said, "Hey, you have to meet somebody," and so that's how we met originally.
it really was. And man, that moms group was where I realized this is where I want to be. This is the community that I want to be a part of. And then from there, got connected with a couple of other moms who are now part. Or I've joined their quarantine, and we also do homeschool together. So we see each other a lot during during the week. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, and Peter, your husband, is working at Rice, and you guys are sort of navigating Houston.
Houston life.
And
But we really enjoy it. We thoroughly enjoy being in Houston. I think Peter more so than me in terms of the weather. He loves that he does not have to deal with the snow. We love how Houston is very much, we feel like it's very family oriented. And so we really appreciate that. The good food. We also appreciate, we
yeah,
must mention the food.
yeah. I mean, like Michigan's great, and the first snow of the year is beautiful, and then everything after that is misery.
Yeah.
So
About 5 months later, you get, yeah, it goes on for a good 5, 6 months, and so you get tired out of it after a little while. So it's good to not have to deal with that.
that's great. And so, as you look at this, I know that some of your work sort of went out of church, and then at the university, also you were doing some work with marginalized women.
Mhm.
What did that work look like, and how does that inform in some ways how you sort of see the world and minister going forward?
Yeah. So the work, the Urban Compassion Ministry in Vancouver was where I got to serve marginalized women, and as a result, also was able to work with their families or specifically their children. But in Michigan, I worked at the university and I did some work with underserved youth. And uh, and the question was, how does that inform?
Yeah, how does that inform sort of how does that inform your thought process, your
Mhm.
like how do you take sort of your relationship with God and then what ministry looks like in light of those experiences because they're transformative experiences. They allow us to see the world in a new way.
Well, I think um, so. With the urban ministry, it was very holistic. In Vancouver, you met the needs, the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of a person. In Michigan, it was in a secular context, and as much as the work did want to meet the needs, the holistic needs of um, its target audience, because the spiritual component was lacking, there were times where some of our work would feel difficult because there was a lack of hope, a sense of hope. And so during those couple of years, I just really got the sense that uh, God needs to be in the picture. I mean, He's there while I'm serving these kids and while I'm doing programming, but for the kids to enter into that space in a very tangible way is what I realized. And I thought, as much as I enjoyed doing that work, I think the Lord is calling me to a space where we can allow kids to walk in the knowledge of who they are in Christ and really experience Him in a intimate and personal way.
Yeah. Because I see the parallels of some of those lessons into what we've talked about your vision for kids going forward, which I'm incredibly excited about. I especially think it's really the word I'm looking for. It's perfect for the season we're
Yeah.
in the season and the season will be coming out of in pandemic. So why don't you share a little bit about your heart for kids and what you desire to see?
Hmm. Ah, to sum it up in one, um, I guess, statement, it would be my heart, my passion is to see kids, children walking in the knowledge and experience of God loving them, for it to be more than just an abstract concept or a theological point that we teach kids, uh, but for it to be a lived out experience where they know that God is loving them right now. Whatever they may be going through, whatever they may be doing, that God loves them.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
yeah. And also,
And go ahead.
sorry. um, yeah. And I think, with pandemic, I feel like uh, the family is the place where um, a lot of that we realize must take place. And that's a challenge. I'm experiencing that with my little one, with my 3-year-old, when she tells me, I love Jesus, but I want to do bad things, and
Don't
and
we all? But listen, in all fairness, I think that's in everybody's story. She's just brave enough to say it.
yes, yes. And so to find a spiritual rhythm in the family, that has been become more of a personal passion of mine. I would love to see that for the church as a whole, for us to figure out what does that look like as a community for our kids to experience the presence of God in their homes, in their schools, at church.
I love your focus on the presence of God because I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier. You said, I wrote it down here. It's, the knowledge and experience of God loving them, but also families being able to recognize the presence of God.
Yeah, yeah,
And and we were talking a bit about sort of the presence of God is not something that goes or comes. It's our awareness of the presence of God. I think Brennan talks about this, or and I think Richard Rohr talks about this as well, is that it's our awareness of the presence of God.
Yeah.
Can you, because I love that, can you share a little bit about like
Sure.
what that God's been telling you in this season about that?
Yeah. So I meet with a group of people that seek um, to, um, and this I'm borrowing from Brenner when he says, unmask the presence of God in our daily lives. And it's a spiritual direction cohort. And in that space, we try to recognize for ourselves first before we do it for others where God is, because it's not our it's not a lack of his presence in our life, it's the lack of our awareness of his presence. And so to walk in that, to walk in knowing that, hey, in this moment, even as I'm frustrated with my child and telling her to pick up her toys for the 12th time, uh, that God is there in that moment, and that he, regardless of what I'm feeling, he still loves me. And that really shifts our perspective of um, our view of ourselves, but also how we interact with others. And so that has really seeped into my own that training, or the conversations that I've had regarding God's presence, um, has really impacted my own family life. I think my relationships, and I would love to see a lot of that brought into the children's ministry, where the kids, the first instinct is not to run away from God, but to run towards his arms when they do something wrong, or when they feel like they're unworthy, or, life just gets really tough, for them to run into the arms of the Father who says, here, I love you. This is, and, recognize that his arms are like this at all times, wanting to embrace.
Yeah, it's I'm really excited about that. Actually, what's I'm finding very interesting is in all of this that is going on right now. Hold on, I got dogs barking and
Yeah.
kids everywhere. This is recording at home.
Yeah.
Um, but in all of this, in our Sundays, for example, we're everything feels different. I mean, we're masked up, we're there. We have kids in the room, which, by the way, I've really loved having kids in the room. And
Mhm.
I know that there are some people that maybe struggle with kids in the room if they get loud or everything. I've loved having them in the room because it just sort of, in some ways, it's nostalgic for me. It's the way I grew up.
Yeah.
In
Same here.
certain, yeah, in the church, in the community my parents pastored in, it was like, well, kids are here, and
Yeah.
and maybe we'll do kids one day, and then we did, and then back in the room, and anyways,
Yeah.
it's personal stuff. However, um, the presence of God has been really sweet, but more than anything, I think it's been our ability to sort of remove the expectation that the presence of God will feel and look like this,
Right.
like it has traditionally on our Sundays.
Mm.
And actually, this past Sunday, we when we're talking about being image bearers of the living God, I got a couple messages from people that said, "Man, I really experienced the presence of God where I was watching online,"
Wow.
which is one of those things where you go, "Yeah, you know what this is about. It's really about the awareness of the presence of God."
Mhm.
And if we keep fighting to experience the way we always have, we'll miss the fact that it's there.
Mm.
And we if we just sort of change perspective, we can experience him in amazing ways. So I love that. There is a challenge though for you. So
Mm.
like you're coming into this and you don't get to like say hi to all the parents every week.
Right.
So we were talking about this as well. This is going to be a great opportunity to sort of find creative ways to get to know everybody,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yes, the challenge is the opportunity. It really is. It's the I think that's one of the things I was trying to figure out. I'm coming into this community, I'm new, and I really want to get to know the faces, the lives of the people that make up this community. And so, how am I going to do that? I know that eventually I'll be able to connect with the kids, but I would love to see and get to know the parents, maybe the older siblings, the grandparents, and so, like I said, I think it's an opportunity for us to be creative. It's an opportunity to really think outside of the box, um, and to actually be very intentional about community, recognizing the importance of it, the value of it, and then pursuing it in unconventional ways. So yeah, that's going to be my homework, but also I think something that I'll really enjoy tackling.
And I, not just yours, I think we're all talking about this. We had a meeting last week sort of talking through this, is saying
Right.
how do we how do we really innovate in the way we connect and create community, create conversations and dialogue, because the isolation has sort of driven us in some ways into some odd spaces. And so this is, I love that this is an opportunity for us to sort of rethink, and the challenge that presents itself is actually an exciting one because it leads to community and connection.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing,
Yes.
you actually have an official email now.
Oh yeah, I
So
do.
if anybody wants to talk to you, your email is.
Jessica at houstonvineyard.org. So JESSICA. My last name's a little more complicated, so we decided to completely eliminate that from my email. and yeah,
So
Houston Vineyard. Yeah,
so if anybody wants to say hi, drop a line, you can do that there.
it's great.
Also, you'll be starting to show up in different ways in the next couple weeks.
Yep.
Uh, Jessica, you know the story, and I'll share a little bit of the story. Uh, you know, when we moved here, Jill was clear, hey, I'm going to retire at some point, and we're like, oh, that point is coming closer. In the
Yeah.
process of this last year, just sort of praying through, God, what do you have for us as a church? Who should lead our children's ministry? More than a strategy of what we're going to do, and but like who would? The more I prayed, and the more we sort of talked, Danya and I talked about it, uh, I felt like I needed to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And I think we had one conversation, but I sort of
Right.
knew who you were in the periphery.
Yeah.
And I'm really thankful that I see God's hand in all of this. I think I'm really excited about not only what you're going to bring for the life of our children, but really how you're going to speak into the life of our church as a whole. And so
Mm.
we welcome you. Welcome.
I feel very welcome. So that
Well,
I think
great.
is one characteristic that really, at least for me, really stands out about the Houston Vineyard is just the warm welcome. Thank you.
So we're excited.
I am too. We are
Let's
too.
have some fun.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you
And
for having me.
have a great day.
Yeah, you too.